Ready? Hello and welcome to this edition of Improving's Lunch and Learn. If you're watching live, I hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend. And if you're watching a recorded session, I hope you're about to have a holiday or that was probably depressing. In today's session, we'll be discussing the mysterious thing that is the cloud, as well as why and how to approach moving your small or medium-sized business onto this modern platform. After this session, we'll also have a Q&A. So let's get started. My name is John Anderson, and I'm the Executive Vice President at Code Authority, which is an improving company, and I've been here for over 10 years. I'm a Microsoft Certified Azure Solutions Architect Expert and an MCSA in web applications. My cloud journey started 8 years ago when Microsoft's Azure cloud had been public for only 2 years. Since then, it's grown in both popularity and in features, and today is such a powerful cloud platform. I'm excited to explain how a cloud platform like Microsoft Azure can transform your digital experience. And like I said before, after this session, we will have a Q&A. Today, many companies are moving their virtualized environments to the public cloud, taking advantage of the reduced burden, expense, and risk associated with maintaining a full on-premise environment. Companies have found that they can lower their maintenance costs, scale on demand, implement robust recovery plans, mitigate the risk of disaster, and take advantage of specialized cloud resources and services by moving their workloads to the cloud. Moving to the cloud can be risky, time-consuming, and complicated if done without the right amount of planning and know-how. In this session, we're going to discuss these concepts, familiarize ourselves with the move to the cloud conundrum, and get a grasp on what it takes to move your small or medium-sized business to the cloud. So let's look at today's session as a whole. Get cozy and comfortable because this is a lunch and learn. And don't worry, no one can see you scarfing down that sandwich. I would like a slice of that pizza though. Today we'll be discussing the following topics. First, we'll go over some of the basic concepts about the cloud and explain what the cloud even is. We'll talk about the major types of cloud deployments as well as the kinds of services you'll encounter. After that, we'll go over some of the key reasons companies are apprehensive about moving to the cloud and counter that with some of the best reasons to do it as soon as possible. We will then look at a hypothetical example of an instance where a company would have benefited greatly by being on the cloud, but because they were on premise, their business suffered. Finally, I will outline a good 5-step approach to moving to the cloud that is a tried and true way to not only move to the cloud, but also use the experience as an opportunity to grow and improve as well. Once this session is over, you will not only have downed your entire entree, but you will also be ready to begin the next phase of your cloud journey. So let's discuss basic concepts about the cloud itself and the task at hand. First things first, some of you may be wondering what the cloud even is. Basically, when very small pieces of data heat up, they evaporate and travel. Just kidding. The cloud is really the practice of accessing your data, programs, or files on the internet instead of your local hard drive or server. That's really it in a nutshell. It's also a great buzzword. The cloud is a network of servers usually deployed across the globe in data centers that each has a unique function and works as a single ecosystem. The servers on this network manage data, run applications, deliver content, or provide services. Instead of accessing information from a local or personal computer, you can access information online from any internet-capable device. You can consume this data anywhere you go and anytime you need it. For businesses, this usually means using services that provide virtualized infrastructure, software, and platforms as well. Today, I'll be using a lot of examples from the Microsoft Azure public cloud. It is the platform that I use each and every day, and it is such a formidable platform. With that said, please don't be discouraged by this presentation if you have a different cloud provider in mind. There are analogous services in other major providers such as AWS, IBM, and Google that can achieve many of the same results. In fact, we find ourselves using each of these from time to time. So there are 3 common types of cloud deployments. First is the public cloud. And this is the primary thing people think of nowadays when they think cloud. This is the cloud that is hosted in third-party data centers and is accessible by anyone over the public internet. The public cloud is known for scaling quickly and conveniently. Microsoft Azure and AWS are great examples of public clouds. Next, there is the private cloud concept, where instead of utilizing third-party servers, you instead reap some of the same benefits, but on your own private data center or a limited access data center. IBM has a private cloud, for example, that installs on your own infrastructure and allows you many of the same cloud services you expect, but with the added control over the actual hardware it runs on. With a private cloud, you have more control over the security, but it does require the traditional IT staffing and maintenance you expect with on-premise. Finally, there's what is called a hybrid cloud. Hybrid clouds are when part of your solution lives on the public cloud, but another part remains on-site or in a private cloud. These can be connected and be made to work seamlessly together with appropriate architecture. Azure easily allows for this, and it is especially important if you have legacy machines or software that must remain on-site while the rest can be cloud-based. One of the most common and simple applications of this concept is when you have an on-premise Active Directory that you use locally, but you also want to sync that up to the cloud to control authentication there. I think most people have some familiarity with the basics of what a cloud is, but I also want to get into some of the things that really helps modern cloud platforms distinguish themselves from your average server on a rack. So let's talk about cloud services and as. No, not that. As stands for as a service, and it is the services that the cloud provides that gives them their value. First, you will have the concept of infrastructure as a service. This is one of the biggest perks of a cloud platform. Want a new machine? You can have one in minutes. Need to expand the memory, disk space, or processing power? Usually, this is a matter of a few clicks. Want to distribute virtual machines across the world? Super easy. With the cloud, you don't have to worry about maintaining infrastructure, ordering servers, maintaining licenses, managing all the updates, or buying some hardware and realizing it isn't powerful enough. Infrastructure as a service means point-and-click infrastructure that provisions itself to your specifications in minutes. Some infrastructure as a service services on Azure include virtual machines, virtual networks, express route, load balancers, application gateways, file storage, and more. And if that wasn't exciting enough, there's the concept of platform as a service. You can deploy your web application, database, file server, cache, task, or many other things without managing a server at all. Microsoft Azure, for example, has several ways to deploy applications without needing to provision a server. You can take a .NET application, for example, that you host on a web server that runs part of your business and push it up to an Azure App Service. If you need more computing power, you just increase the size of the service. You can also utilize containerization options and run a completely serverless architecture. Some platform as a service services on Azure include Azure App Service, Azure Functions, Azure Logic Apps, Machine Learning, CDN, SQL Database, and more. Software as a service takes it even further. Not only are you not managing infrastructure, you're also not even managing the code. You might be surprised to learn that you may already be reaping the benefits of software as a service in the cloud. Things like Google Drive, Word Online, Office 365, and other products are software applications that run on the cloud and make it easy for you to log in and perform workloads securely from anywhere. With each of the three as-a-service models we looked at, there is a concept of shared responsibility. Traditionally, in an on-premise environment, you're responsible for everything from the networking to the servers to the applications that run on them. With the cloud, you start giving a little of that responsibility away and trust your cloud provider to take it on. When you get into infrastructure as a service, you let go of the responsibility and cost of maintaining hardware. You may choose the operating system and the server settings, such as CPU or RAM, and you're responsible for deploying any applications and managing data. With platform as a service, you no longer have any responsibility for the operating system or server configurations. You only have to worry about the applications and their data. Software as a service removes virtually any responsibility. The software runs on the cloud, and all you have to do is navigate to it or use it. The shared responsibility model is a great way to conceptualize how you can save costs with the cloud because you have less responsibility and less risk. So to move or not to move, I swear I'm not going to finish that. Let's take a look at the great debate on whether or not moving to the cloud is a good idea for business. Okay, so let's face it, the cloud does sound great. You may ask why so many companies don't make the move. Here are some of the excuses or untruths you might hear. Some say that the cloud is expensive. With the cloud, your capital costs are converted to operational costs. You save money by only paying for exactly what you need, and usually what is called a pay-as-you-go model. You also save on in-house IT needs. If you want to see how much you would save on Azure, you can check out Azure's total cost of ownership calculator. This tool helps you estimate the cost savings that you would achieve by migrating. Some people say that the cloud is insecure. On a cloud platform like Microsoft Azure, you have a ton of control over the security. There are different network configuration options, encryption and backup options, and advanced monitoring capabilities. On top of this, Azure has complete documentation of the security of their services, including a listing of SLAs and certificates that their products have. It also has things like machine learning capabilities to detect risky sign-ins and a ton of other access control features both for your cloud infrastructure and for your hosted applications. Some say that the cloud is just a fad. The cloud was pioneered in the 1960s, and it's been popular since the mid-2000s. In my time using Azure, I've seen it grow and grow. And in today's climate with COVID-19, we're seeing surges in cloud use like never before. If you think the cloud is not where it's at, you need to think again. Some people are just old-fashioned, and you may be an old-fashioned, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of person. But remember that the average lifespan for a software product is between 6 and 8 years. During that time, it is easy to get comfortable with what you have. But it's amazing just how much the technology landscape can change during that time if you don't keep up with it. Some think, oh, I can just move later. If you think you can move later and be fine, you're taking the wrong approach. With this mindset, you're likely just waiting for some cataclysmic event to happen within your infrastructure that pushes you to start looking into it. Let me tell you that there is no better time than the present. Don't get caught off guard. And some say that the effort just doesn't seem worth it. And sure, the task of moving things from where you have them now to the cloud is daunting. But trust me, modernizing your workloads, having the ability to scale, reducing your need to maintain infrastructure, and all the other benefits are well worth it. In this session, I'm going to shed some light on the process so that you will feel more confident about making the jump. So now let's look at some reasons why you should move to the cloud. Flexibility and scalability. As your customers' demands grow or fluctuate, your infrastructure needs to be able to grow and fluctuate as well. During increased demand, you can scale your resources so your clients don't see any degradation in service. When you have low demand, scale down so you can save in cost. Remember that with the cloud, you pay for what you use. When you deploy an application or virtual machine to the cloud, you have the benefit of both horizontal and vertical scaling. Horizontal scaling means making more copies so that requests can be routed between them. For example, if you know your web application has a high load on weekends, you can have Azure horizontally scale on weekends to add a few copies. This way your customers don't perceive a decrease in performance. Once the weekend is over, you can have the application scale back. This scaling can be automated based on known time periods or even based on things like CPU performance, all with a simple setup in the Azure portal. Vertical scaling is similar, except instead of increasing power by adding copies, you increase power by increasing the size of the application or virtual machine itself. Another reason to move to the cloud is disaster recovery. Small and medium-sized businesses with a small physical footprint just don't have the same disaster recovery options that you can get from a global scale cloud provider with regional redundancy options. Cloud providers have recovery and failover services built in that you can utilize and feel safe about your applications and data. Another reason is automatic software updates. Since you aren't managing the hardware and servers, you also don't have to manage software updates. Cloud providers will manage this for you so that you're always using the latest security patches and updates. Another obvious reason to move to the cloud is the cost savings. We've talked about this one some already, but this is an important point. Your capital costs are converted to operational costs with the cloud. You don't have to pay the high cost for hardware. Since the cloud is a subscription-based model, you pay as you go for what you need when you need it. Say goodbye to sudden IT emergencies, hardware failures, and all the other nightmares that come with managing your own infrastructure. And with less time being spent focusing on hardware, you can spend more time focusing on your software. Another reason is increased collaboration. The cloud by design is internet-based, and that means it can be accessed from anywhere at any time. Implementing a cloud-based workflow for your employees, especially using software as a service options, can increase their level of collaboration and allow them to work together to do more. And along those same lines, another reason to move to the cloud is work from anywhere. Mobility has always been an important topic, but it's even more pertinent now after the COVID-19 pandemic. With the cloud, your employees can work from anywhere. All they need is an internet connection. At Code Authority, for example, our entire infrastructure is on the cloud, including shared drives, file shares, collaboration tools, and more. When COVID-19 hit us, we were ready immediately to continue working remotely without any degradation in our ability to work together and succeed. This is the kind of story any cloud-based business can have with appropriate planning. Another reason is the security of the cloud. Security and compliance are very important. It may seem counterintuitive, but with the cloud, you can really take control of your data. For example, imagine how many laptops are stolen every year with sensitive data on them. With the cloud, your data lives securely on the internet, so it doesn't matter what happens to your device. Azure and other providers also have comprehensive security and compliance documentation for their services, which can give you and your clients peace of mind. Another reason is to stay competitive. So what if I told you that a good reason to move to the cloud is because everyone else is doing it? That sounds a bit childish, but it's true. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Azure saw an increase in usage of over 9 times. The cloud is where the future of workloads lies, and as more and more consumers move to the cloud, it will only get more useful and more robust. Okay, so there aren't really 37 slides about why you should move to the cloud, but I'm sure that I could fill that many if I had enough time. What might be the best reason to move to the cloud is that it's a perfect opportunity to modernize your business applications and platforms. It's a huge step towards that goal in and of itself, but during the process, you should really use the experience as an opportunity to update older business applications. This means think about whether using Microsoft Access is a good idea, whether you want to convert that old WinForms application into something newer, or whether that 10-year-old application that still somehow seems to work should finally be laid to rest. Maybe you can even retire the filing cabinet. As part of modernizing your current solutions, you might look at some of the cool services that you can utilize on the cloud. Remember all of those as-a-service things I talked about earlier? Well, those are powerful tools that weren't really an option for you on-premise. Moving to the cloud means adding so many useful tools to your tool belt. Cosmos is a robust database solution that can take your structured or unstructured data to the next level. Service bus, queues, and event hubs are a great way to capture messages from applications or events and communicate those to be processed or stored. With Azure, you can schedule functions to run. You can trigger processes to run with alerts, and you can even create entire application workflows using Azure Logic Apps without any code at all. So let's take a traditional business that runs its own Windows server on-site or in a co-location. Their web server has a SQL database on it and a web application running on IIS. Every time someone hits their website and submits a form, that form data is processed and stored. The processing takes a few seconds, but they're using asynchronous techniques and their user doesn't know any better. The in-house IT person maintains a server, tries to keep up with Windows updates, and reacts to any issues as they occur. All of a sudden, the application begins to bog down as more and more people begin using it. This only seems to happen between 3 and 5 p.m. every day, but it completely debilitates their website. They actually start processing less submissions as a whole, even though they should have processed more if the application hadn't locked up. They realize that to support this workload, they actually need to split it across 2 or more machines. So their IT person goes to Google how to do that while he orders new hardware and licensing to expand whenever it comes in. So in this case, they're losing submissions because they couldn't easily scale. They can't react quickly when they realize there's a problem, and they aren't really fixing the solution in a forward-thinking way. The truth is, at this point, they probably don't need 2 machines all the time. They could probably deal with 1 extra during the time span they know they need it, and then adjust from there. With the cloud, you can automate the spin up and spin down of extra load balanced machines based on a known time period or even a performance metric. They could also benefit by utilizing some of the other services that the cloud has to offer. Instead of processing the forms on the server, for example, they could push the forms to a queue and then process those with an Azure function. An Azure function is basically a method that you can run ad hoc. This might mean they could save money by reducing the size of their VM since they're moving the intense processing out of it. My point here is, with a public cloud like Azure, you can transform even what seems to be the most basic infrastructures into a robust, forward-thinking architecture that ensures you're ready for whatever is thrown at you, whether unexpected or expected. Not only that, but solving these types of issues in the cloud is much easier and much faster to put in place. I just want to show you an example of just how easy it is to create a server using Azure. It is literally as easy as answering a few questions. What do you want to call it? What region or data center do you want it deployed in? And what sort of redundancy or availability do you need? What image should it be created with? And what size CPU and memory do you need? You don't have to wait for the mail to arrive. You don't have to pay for any licenses, and the infrastructure is set up for you in minutes. You can easily create even more complicated things like virtual machine scale sets that scale copies of virtual machines based on performance data using the same simple interface. Creating your infrastructure on the cloud is very easy. So now that we've learned about the cloud and why it's awesome, let's take a look at a good 5-step approach to making the move. Moving to the cloud might seem like a daunting task, but with a proper approach and planning, it can be a transformative experience. First of all, it's important to take a good look at what you have now. Document any workstations, servers, or virtual machines that you're using. Take a look at your networks and your document settings. Document any software or applications that you host for the public or use internally. Think about any compliance or security requirements that you currently adhere to. Having a good inventory of what you currently have is going to make it easier to prepare for the move. Next, you should take a step back and imagine what your cloud environment would look like. Based on the inventory that you documented, what virtual machines do you envision in your cloud? Which software or applications should you move up, and how do you imagine they'll be hosted? Do you have anything that needs to stay on site? Maybe an older machine or a device that has to stay connected to your local network. Remember that this is okay. You can set up secure communication between your on-site resources and your cloud resources. Think about what your desired network configuration should be. What needs to connect to your cloud network, and are those things in known locations or are they remote? You have several options for your virtual network connections like peer-to-peer, site-to-site, and express route that you can configure to suit your needs. In your cloud vision, do your compliance or security guidelines affect your networking or your architecture? You should review the security and compliance documentation for your cloud provider. Do you see any part of your current inventory being modernized as part of the cloud move? Is there a place in your vision for any cloud products that weren't an option before? So with your inventory and your vision in hand, you can now create a plan that takes what you have and turns it into what you want. Are there any machines that you want to push up exact copies of? Azure has ways to deploy servers from on-premise to the cloud easily using site recovery. Do you have solutions that you want to redeploy from source code? Change or implement DevOps solutions to deploy to the cloud so that updates are easier in the future. In your plan, think about how much downtime you can allow for each item. You could also try to create a plan that allows you to deploy in stages. Can you deploy a base infrastructure first and then build from there? Create a realistic roadmap showing when you plan to migrate, which items. And be sure to include any modernization projects in your plan as well. So you came up with a robust and comprehensive roadmap to success. You mapped your current digital inventory to their destination cloud resources, and you planned exactly how to make the move. You accounted for any downtime requirements, and you decided how you would update any continuous deployments. You also decided whether or not you want to make any updates to modernize portions of your infrastructure or software. Now that you have that plan, it is time to execute. Put the plan in motion and start moving step by step. Now, I should mention here there's a relatively new feature called Azure Migrate that really helps with all 4 of the previous steps. You can use its tools to create an inventory of what you have and get recommendations for what types of resources that you need to migrate them to. This will give you an idea of the costs you can expect and a report you can feed in to help automate and track the migration process itself. Finally, as portions of your infrastructure get moved to the cloud, you should monitor and make adjustments as necessary to ensure they're working according to your needs. The great thing about the cloud is that any hardware or networking related adjustments are very simple. You may find that you can scale things down more than anticipated, or that you may want to change the type of resource you've used. Azure has robust monitoring capabilities that give you an in-depth look at how each of your resources is working. You can monitor performance and set up alerts that will trigger an email or other notification. You can set up heartbeats that will monitor whether applications are responding. You can even set up performance-based rules to scale some resources. There's also a cost management area where you can see the current and projected costs of your resources in an easy-to-use filterable interface. This can be useful when trying to understand Azure's charges and in making resource configuration decisions. The Azure Advisor will look at your resources and make recommendations on ways you can change them to optimize cost or performance. It may look at the performance of your virtual machines and recommend reducing or increasing the size if it determines it could help. It'll even let you know if there are resources that aren't being used so that you can delete them. Azure SQL has an area where you can look at performance recommendations like new indexes or indexes you should drop for your SQL databases. Azure and other cloud providers give you a wealth of information so that you can make informed decisions about how you utilize their resources. So the cloud is a powerful tool that enables you to work from anywhere, sell your products anywhere, scale your offering on demand, spend less money maintaining infrastructure, and more. I hope that I've planted a seed in your mind if you don't already capitalize on those benefits. Something I want you to take away from this is that moving to the cloud is not something that has to be scary or disruptive. It's something that a company like Improving can guide you through to success. As I said when I started, I've been personally working with Azure for over 8 years. It's something we work with each and every day. Whether you need help planning, help maintaining, a review of what you have, or someone to do the whole process, Improving is here to help. Thank you so much. That's all I have. That's all I have today. I believe we have some time for some questions though. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send them in the chat.
Okay, I got one question here. It's from someone that doesn't know anything about cloud technology. And they want to know where they could go to learn things at an introductory or functional level so they can talk about it without seeming like an idiot.
Yeah, so
salesperson type.
So the question was, where can someone without much cloud knowledge go to learn about the cloud? And I think a great resource for that would be Microsoft Learn. So Microsoft Learn has a lot of very beginner to advanced tutorials that guide you through the whole process and explain everything about how Microsoft Azure works. And I would also suggest maybe...
That was from a Scrum Master, Agile Coach type person.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I would also suggest maybe looking into the AZ900 exam. That's the Azure Fundamental Certification. Studying for that exam is actually really enjoyable. You learn so much, and it's not too hard of a test. So I would definitely look into that.
What's that test number again?
AZ900.
Okay. Here's one that I would think of if I was a small business owner. I would think, how long does it take to move all my premises-based file shares to a cloud-based file share? And can it be done in an easy way without an IT guy?
So you can use Azure to sync your file share with the cloud in real time, so that when you decide to switch over, there's no downtime at all. It just switches over.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And you can do that with virtual machines. You can do that with databases. It makes it seamless to just make the switch.
Okay, good. Well, we don't have any more questions today. That was it.
Cool. I think I got one more slide.
One more slide.
So that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you again for watching. There are more Improving Lunch and Learns coming soon, including one tomorrow. Check out improving.com and click Webinar Events to see a full list. Thank you very much.